thinking about what schools are doing inside the classroom that may be making it harder, right, for kids. So I
Yes.
totally, totally take your point on that. But Tim, so let me turn back to you here because I just need a little bit more clarification. Because curriculum is a big part of this, but getting back to the evaluations, I just want to be sure I heard you correctly that you said that a lot of schools are still using, if not the old model, they're using evaluations that still look for patterns of strengths and weaknesses. I think you've previously called it discrepancy 2.0.
I did,
Okay.
because I was being cheeky when I said that. So it's a way of thinking about it as being analogous in many ways, since very similar processing measures are used in this newer approach of patterns of strengths and weaknesses. So you're borrowing a lot, and you're borrowing heavily from an IQ type assessment battery.
Okay, so here's let's get down to issues of dollars and cents, right? Because there just aren't unlimited funds
Nope.
for education anywhere, unfortunately, if you ask me. So ultimately, there has to be some way to identify who is in need of help. Clarice, you had mentioned another evaluation system. I didn't catch the name.
Um,
It was started with an
maybe.
O. O.
Oh, Orton Gillingham?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking
Yeah. Is
about?
that
Yeah, Orton
another
Gillingham
test?
is. That's not another test. That's just an approach or method that is used to teach children who are dyslexic
I
how to
see.
read.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So then, thanks for that clarification. Because honestly,
No
in
problem.
education, there's a lot of language that I have trouble keeping track of.
I am so
That
sorry.
no, no,
Yes, I should have said that.
it's quite all right. So Tim, what are the other ways that schools can somehow, I hate to say this, but identify who needs help and how schools can target the kind of support that those kids need? They need some kind of threshold, don't they?
Well, to build on one thing that you said, the dollars and cents, as well as the time, our treasure, and then what Corey said about the need for instruction and for the resources of dollars to do the work of actually teaching kids how to read in the first place, you could use an instructional model where we actually leverage and put money into the resources of teaching and equipping educators and giving students those resources to actually equip themselves with literacy. That's what I would focus on. Research that's looked at how much it cost a mid-sized school district is anywhere from $500 to $750,000 are invested annually to do this type of testing that you keep referring to across the nation. Now, a group then came back on that study that was published by a colleague of mine, Jeremy Misiak from University of Houston, and said, well, no, actually, it's closer to just $250,000 if you've got a handful of schools and you have a lot of the infrastructure you already need, which means you're already paying people. You already have these very expensive tests. But they don't talk about the fact that these tests could take anywhere from 8 to 10 hours of children's time away from instruction. It's a lot of instruction and intervention a teacher could give to it. And you're taking resources of a paid position that could be a reading interventionist. It could be a person who is a coach and highly trained to support these people. By having and maintaining these models, we rob resources away from what we need for all of our students. Students who are low class like myself from a poor background, students of colors, multilingual learners who are coming in, needing to be instructed and be identified with what they need and to build off their strengths. So we're robbing resources right now by maintaining this model, and we're putting the money into other people's hands.
Wait, so be clear about that. So that you're saying that there are already people in schools who they're just their work is for different things. Literacy coaches, things like that.
They're there, but they're
They're
under-resourced, as Clarice.
under-resourced. Okay.
They're under-resourced. They don't have the resources to do it. When they need to adopt a new curriculum, when they need to pay for the sustained training, when they need to develop the in-house personnel to sustain full implementation of highly effective practices for all learners, and then have differentiated intervention to meet the needs of my child, of Clarice's child, of Risha Conroe's child, of other people's children. They don't have those resources. They don't have the capacity to do it. But they have the capacity to hire the people that they do for the testing because that's a compliance with the federal law. So they're doing a compliance mindset, which they have to do with the way the laws are structured and how they're held accountable.
I'm Meghna Chakrabarty. This is On Point.
Here on KUOW FM Seattle, KUOW Tumwater, and KQOW Bellingham. Good morning, I'm Casey Martin here with Paige Browning. You are listening to On Point. And this, folks, this is the final chance to support On Point this spring. Can you help with a gift of $250, $500, or even $1,000? We are asking for your support right now. Goal update.
Okay.
We had a $9,500 goal this hour, and with your help, we've raised $6,300 so far. We are so very close to hitting that goal. Looking to our full court press to raise the additional $3,100 right now. We know you love and value On Point, so jump on the interwebs and make your gift right now. It's kuow.org, or you can click Give Now on the app.
Okay, so we're really close to this goal. We need $3,000 to meet our goal. If you have not given yet, we're asking you to step up, as Casey said, with maybe a gift of $250, maybe a gift of $20 a month to break it up that way. Here at KUOW, we're planting seeds every day through journalism that inform and connect us. You know, these small seeds become big ideas. They become stories. And you help make all this possible. Join us in making a better informed community and world by becoming a monthly donor today. KUOW.org.
Just a few minutes left in this hour to show your support for On Point. KUOW meets you wherever you are with the news that you need, whether you're tuning into your car radio, using the KUOW app, or queuing up one of our local podcasts. You get the same high-quality, hyper-local reporting and programming you love. However, you listen, we're here to make it
strain 2-in-1 probiotic and prebiotic, engineered to survive digestion, support healthy regularity, and promote whole body health. Learn more at seed.com/public.
Masayoshi Son is the most powerful tech mogul you've never heard of, and yet he's pouring billions into the U.S. and flexing his connections to the White House.
Mr. President, last month I came to celebrate your winning and promised that we will invest $100 billion. And you told me, oh, Masa, go for 200. Now I came back with 500.
That's coming up Monday on Point.
pretty peaceful, but we have Gene writing in, who writes in, a fellow WSU supporter writes, "Go Cougs!" all caps.
Funding for Here and Now comes from MathWorks, creator of MATLAB and Simulink software, accelerating the pace of engineering and science. Learn more at mathworks.com.
543-9595. Now is the time. Do it right now.
Little March Madness happening here with our listeners. Whoever you'd like to support, whether it's a team, whether it's someone in your neighborhood, a child, a parent, give us a note of who you're supporting. Gene's got the Go Cougs. Who are you going to support? Who are you championing? Leave us a note when you give right now, KUOW.org. Looking for people to come in with a gift of $25 a month right now to help us reach this goal.
That's right. We have the bucket hat. We have the pint glass that has Sasquatch. And as somebody told me this morning, Sasquatch might be a little elusive, but local public programming is not. KUOW.org, 206-543-9595. Show your support for local public journalism, and thank you so very much.
Thanks.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is directing the Small Business Administration to take over the Department of Education's federal student loans program. The administration's begun the process of dismantling the Education Department, though its abolishment would require congressional approval. President Trump has again aired his displeasure with one of the U.S.'s biggest trade partners. Canada.
We don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything from Canada. And yet it costs us $200 billion a year in subsidy to keep Canada afloat. So when I say they should be a state, I mean that. I really mean that.
Trump at the White House today. This weekend, Canada's new Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to trigger the process for an early parliamentary election next month. Carney has said he is ready to meet with Trump if he shows respect for Canadian sovereignty. The White House confirms Johnson & Johnson's plan to spend more than $55 billion to build 4 plants in the U.S. The drug company's promised to boost domestic investments in manufacturing, research, and development. President Trump's threat of tariffs has compelled a number of companies to expand their manufacturing operations on U.S. soil. 2 progressive members of Congress, a Democrat and an independent, are calling for the Democratic Party to be more forceful in its pushback against President Trump's agenda. Here's NPR's Stephen Fowler.
At a packed hockey arena on Arizona State University's campus, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders denounced Trump. Sanders painted Trump's Department of Government Efficiency effort to fire federal workers and slash government agencies as morally wrong and illegal.
Every single day, Trump and his friends are ignoring the Constitution of the United States of America.
But the pair also joined the growing chorus of voters who say the Democratic Party needs to do more to defend those institutions and have stronger plans to counter Trump's agenda. Stephen Fowler, NPR News, Tempe, Arizona.
Ukraine and Russia are accusing each other of continuing to attack energy infrastructure. This comes ahead of ceasefire talks that are supposed to take place soon in Saudi Arabia. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports Ukraine says Russia also shelled civilian areas in 2 regions overnight.
Ukraine says Moscow's airstrikes destroyed residential neighborhoods in Zaporizhia and Odessa provinces Friday, smashing civilian homes and injuring at least 6 people, including a child. Zaporizhia is one of the 4 Ukrainian regions partially occupied by Russian forces that President Vladimir Putin annexed in a referendum 2 years ago. He says Russia must have these provinces in any peace deal, even though it doesn't fully control 3 of them. Ukraine says it will never cede these territories to Russia. Experts say any peace deal would likely mean freezing the front line where it is and creating a Korean peninsula-type situation in Europe. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Kyiv.
This is NPR News. The federal government says that Maryland authorities failed to conduct critical tests on the Francis Scott Key Bridge before it collapsed last year. It was struck by a ship. The National Transportation Safety Board is warning that other U.S. bridges need to be checked for vulnerability. As mortgage rates ease, more people sold their homes in February. The National Association of Realtors reporting a more than 4% increase in existing home sales from January. Compared to a year ago, sales fell by more than 1%. Scientists say new research hints at how the universe could end, and it involves dark energy. NPR's Chantalise Duster reports.
Scientists with the Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument Group say when the universe formed, dark energy, the mysterious force behind its rapid expansion, was very strong. But scientists say dark energy is weakening, and that will continue. Mustafa Ishak, co-chair of the group and astrophysics professor at the University of Texas at Dallas, says this could allow matter to get stronger, which could be the force that causes the universe to ultimately collapse.
We thought before that the universe will keep just expanding and expanding faster and faster and faster and faster. Almost it becomes empty. It is back to the table. The universe now also has the possibility that it will stop and it will collapse.
He and other scientists also say there is no current evidence that the universe has stopped expanding. Chantalise Duster, NPR News.
The Dow is down nearly 100 points at 41,856. This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Indeed, committed to giving job listings increased visibility with relevant candidates through its sponsored jobs feature. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Welcome to Friday. Welcome to KUOW's Week in Review, and welcome to the final full day of our spring membership drive. I'm Bill Radke, and if you've been waiting, drumming your fingers, thinking about it, contemplating giving to KUOW, well, now's the time, and a great way to do that, I suggest a monthly donation so that you're giving ongoing support to KUOW, because what you want KUOW to be is ongoing. Not a flash in the pan, Scott Greenstone, not feast or famine, but ongoing. So monthly donation. And I think going to KUOW.org is a great way to do that. I'm here with Scott Greenstone, who hosts Sound Politics on KUOW.
Hey, Bill. If you're a procrastinator like me out there, you waited till the best time. I'm telling you, right now is the time.
This is primo
to give, because this hour we have an extra reason. We have some listeners, Spencer and Chris in Ballard, who will match your donation up to $10,000 only in the next hour.
Wow.
So don't procrastinate too much longer, because at this point, this is the point where your money can go twice as far. Thanks to Spencer and Chris in Ballard. Also, if you give at the $20 per month level or a one-time gift of $240, we can thank you with a digital news subscription to the New York Times. I think that's a steal. You're giving to local news, and you're giving yourself access to national and international news.
So many great deals at once happening here with the New York Times digital subscription, if you can give at that level. And just Spencer and Chris in Ballard, who even are you? I mean, you are seriously stepping up, and I'd like you to join Spencer and Chris right now and support, thoughtful debate.
Yeah.
I mean, we're about to start the show here, and every week we get into what happened this week from various points of view. I want to hear it. I want to hear different takes on what's going on, and we talk it out, and we help you think it out, and that's why you join us every week. You know that. Now, with this challenge match, why don't you do something about your love for Week in Review? I know you email me. You tell me what you don't like. You tell me what you do like. I'm just saying, now I'm coming to you and saying, step up and be a part of KUOW.
Yeah, that's right. There's not a lot of places. I hear this a lot from folks in the community, folks who have been listening to Bill Radke since. I was just talking to my friend. He was like, I've been listening to Bill Radke since I was 5 years old. There's a lot. There are not a lot of outlets for this kind of conversation, I think, anymore. You can listen to Gavin Newsom nodding along to claims that the election was stolen, but you can't listen to a lot of different perspectives, that about local issues. I don't see anything like this show when I look around often, at local programming. So if you think this is important, if you listen in to kind of, feel more informed and feel more connected to your community, I hope that you will join Spencer and Chris in Ballard, who are matching your donation and doubling it just for the next 50 minutes, 55 minutes, something like that.
You know what? You've made Week in Review sound like such a great show. I think we should just we should start that show.
I love it.
Okay, so final time, go to KUOW.org or use the phone, call 206-543-9595. Double your money because of this challenge match from Spencer and Chris in Ballard, and make KUOW something that's going to be here today and tomorrow and all year long and for years to come. And thank you for doing it. Okay. Let's begin the show. We've been acting like we're alone, Scott.
Yeah,
we're not. Right. We've got two other panelists here on the show. So again, Scott Greenstone is our politics reporter, and he co-hosts Sound Politics, a great podcast with Libby Dankman. A must listen. And speaking of wonderful podcasts, Andrew Walsh is Too Beautiful to Live, and he co-hosts that pod. Hey, Andrew, welcome back.
Finally, just sitting here, I finally feel seen. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are seen and heard. By the way, you literally can see Andrew because we stream the show on YouTube, and I recommend that experience. And I love welcoming a new panelist to Week in Review, the executive director and founder of the Center for Latino Leadership, Maya Espinoza. Welcome to Week in Review.
Thanks for having me, Bill. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. You've been a political candidate, right? You run for a superintendent of public instruction?
Yes, that and other offices.
Yeah.
That was the statewide office that I ran for and got pretty close on.
Right. You
Excited to-
ran for state senate in Lakewood, Stillicum area, Joint Base Lewis McChord.
That's right.
As a Republican.
As a Republican.
Yes. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank
Great
you.
to have you. Now, Maya, being a Republican, isn't in the middle of this debate we're about to have, but I'm very interested in your thoughts. Because if you're a Democrat in Washington State, then you've got a lot to argue about, right? I mean, for one thing, why did Trump win? And did Seattle play a part by being one of those blue cities that Republicans say is ruined by lefty lunatics? And there are a couple of national politicians in Washington who are in a great position to be having this conversation, and they are. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal represents America's 7th most heavily Democratic district. Seattle, White Center, Bury, and Vashon. She's can I call her a lefty progressive?
I think you definitely could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's sort of been having it out with, debating, conversing with her Democratic colleague, Adam Smith, who does represent part of Seattle, but also represents Mercer Island and Bellevue, Auburn Federal Way. He is a less progressive Democrat, moderate Democrat.
Yeah.
What would you say?
She is the chair of the Progressive Caucus,
Yes.
if I remember correctly. So she's definitely further to the left than he is. I don't know. He was on the New Democrats. They were kind of a moderate-ish, but it's all relative, I guess.
Labels. His labels are
Yes.
very reductive. But Adam Smith has said, quote, the extreme left is leading us into a ditch, end of quote. So that gives you some idea. Andrew, you told me that Adam Smith's comments have been living in your head, and you have big messy feelings.
I have big messy feelings. Can I articulate them? Probably not. Thanks for having me. Yeah, and Adam Smith, I think this conversation also sort of started because Adam Smith had a profile in the New Yorker recently where he was talking about how, I'm going to be using the word woke a lot, and I use that like very inadvisedly, probably because of all the baggage that comes along with it. But I'll just use it in the kind of the pejorative sense in which a lot of people do hear that now. And I feel like the argument is like you have a lot of the kind of woke left who's like doing these annoying things to just average people, right? Like using like policing language and saying, don't say homeless, say unhoused. And then they can feel good about doing nothing towards the issue, right? It would just like this sort of, that would be the most sort of negative sort of perspective on that kind of quote unquote wokeness, which I understand as a person, but also as somebody who's pretty progressive, just as a voter. I don't have bona fides, but as somebody who cares about these issues, I think I sort of see both sides of that. I understand why it's important to have very difficult conversations about how we've gotten where we've gotten in this society. I also understand how it can sort of be annoying to have this sort of like wokeness, sort of like kind of, maybe pushed in your face when you're like doing everything you can as a good faith effort to be open to that stuff. And so I think that what we're hearing from Adam Smith is sort of like this wokeness is infiltrating the Democratic platform, and it's the reason we're losing. And of course, me, like a lot of people who see the world the way I see it, I'm very concerned about what happened at the federal level for the White House, Trump being in office. And I guess I am just struggling to find the link between this annoying wokeness. And again, everything I'm saying is in air quotes, right? Like, oh God, don't email me.
I got you.
Don't email me. But like, I'm looking for, email Bill. I'm looking for that link between this sort of like lefty Seattle-ish like wokeness and why we lost the White House. And that is just like, and maybe I'm really struggling with this because I'm trying to figure out if I'm being myopic on it on purpose to protect my values in some way, but like I just don't think that what we saw was a super progressive campaign from Kamala Harris. I don't remember Biden going out there saying a bunch of woke things. Like
they were wearing, Tim Walz was in camouflage.
I just feel like
she says Harris has a gun.
Liz Cheney,
Liz Cheney,
right.
the promises to put a Republican, in the cabinet, trying to, it seemed like I'm talking about Harris's campaign promises specifically. It just did not seem to me, as somebody who's progressive, that Kamala Harris or even Joe Biden ran like a super progressive woke campaign. And I just sort of feel like we've been saying this for as long as I've been following politics at all, like the Democrats are eating themselves or the liberals are eating themselves. But like, I can't find substance in Adam Smith's argument. Like, does he want me to change the way I talk? I think there's a difference between the zeitgeist and the actual platform and party.
Okay, Maya, what's your? You are a Republican, but I don't know what you're about to say.
Well, I'm a Washington State Republican, which really I think different than a lot of the country, but a lot I think. I mean, I have a lot that I would say to so many different points of this conversation. First of all, I want to start by thanking both Pramila Jayapal and Adam Smith for representing both parties of Seattle, Democrat and very progressive.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I think it's very indicative of this area, and certainly as a conservative here, in this country, I think, no, try further left. Keep going. I think it's great. Stand for your principles. And progressive is progress. There is no, by definition, end to that extent. So sure, keep trying that. But when I hear, Kamala ran this conservative campaign, it's like shocking that that there could be any sort of ascription that Kamala was somehow running to the right. Tim Walz doing these kid gimmicky things and pretending he knows how to fire a gun. Are just things that we just as people that were raised conservative, which in my household that happened to be, it's hilarious. At the same time, Adam makes the point that running to the middle here may appeal to more of those populist type voters that really Trump peeled away, and we neglect to acknowledge what a populist Trump really is. He's got very several Democrats in his cabinet, both Democrats that still consider themselves Democrats. I mean, Elon Musk considers himself a Democrat and an environmentalist, but not progressive enough. So I think it really is it is an example of, the left sort of eating their own, but in this state, I think it has really different consequences because the left here is certainly continuing to attract new members and continuing to, by standing for their principles, attract new, voters to this state, frankly. So that, as a conservative in Washington state, concerns me.
Yeah, in fact, KUOW's politics reporter, Scott, I heard you on Sound Politics saying that same thing, that people are that liberals are moving into Washington state. So are we getting even more blue, and Republicans are moving out?
Yeah, that's right. That's according to an analysis from last year that was created by Haystack DNA, which I think was the consulting firm that famously helped Obama win, early on. That was their first bona fide. So they looked at voting records and kind of, as much as they could, tracked moving patterns, and they found that Democrats, I think 61% of the folks who moved to Washington state in the past 2 decades, almost 2 decades, were Democrats, and that the folks that the state was kind of losing Republicans, sort of bleeding off Republicans. It's not like a huge chunk of the people leaving are Republicans, but more Republicans were leaving than moving in.
Okay, and what's your take on this whole? I'm using Adam Smith and Pramila Jayapal, and we're using these terms left and right as if it's that simple. But there is, as we've all said, this is a real come to Jesus sort of moment, right? It's the Democrats' turn to figure out what are we doing here. What is your take on Congressman Smith's call for less woke?
Well, I think, like Maya pointed out, the Democrats are very caught up in labels. They're very much like, we got to shift the party to the left, or we got to shift the party to the center. And I think they're very caught up in branding, too. Does the party come across as too left? I'm not sure if voters care that much about it. I mean, like Maya mentioned, Trump is very conservative on some things, but in other ways, like, I don't know, the Constitution, free trade, he's got a very non-conservative, stance. And I think voters just saw a much clearer message from him. The Democrats, you've got so many different messages coming at you. Tim Walz is a normal guy in a camo, shirt and whatever. But then there's like price controls. Kamala's going to put price controls on food and things like that. So, I'm not sure if this conversation about is the party too left or too moderate, it's a big tent party, that was the idea, I guess, right? So I'm not sure how much it helps Democrats.
Big tent party. And it looks like a very exclusive club to me, as an inside outsider. The Democrat has approved languages. The left has, approved groups. You have to acknowledge these groups. I mean, you have to know all of this.
What do you mean? What do you mean? So are we talking about the left or Democrats? So what are the Democratic?
The left.
So what are the groups that you're talking about?
Approved groups as in, you identify as, Latinx would be one of these groups that, I get lumped into, and something I take offense to.
So labels.
I don't know, because now we have clubs in schools that are for, the colored students or black students, club that is only for students of color. So I don't know if that's labeling students. I don't know that that was the intent, but you have to know how to navigate, the language and the clubs, whether or not you are invited to those clubs or.
And I guess that's where, and I'm not even, by the way, you said like debate several times, and I hate the word debate. Like, I promise you I'm not here to debate. I'm a terrible debater. I'm literally just trying to understand. Because again, when I understand how from a certain perspective, those things might be like maybe annoying, for lack of a better word, maybe annoying for some people, annoying for you. It sounds like you're annoyed by this, but that to me
offended
isn't the Democrats. Like, I feel like once again we keep on having this conversation about why did we lose the election, and does it have to do with our culture? And you can even just say lefty culture, but it's the Democrats who lost. And I'm not seeing, like, you sort of made fun of like Tim Walz for like trying to pretend that he's on the right. I'm not even talking about those efforts, although I'm talking about like, I think the Democrats, and again, we're talking about national politics here, but like it felt like the Democrats didn't do a good job of maybe having a good message when the right painted the Harris campaign as being like super woke. But I'm talking about and so maybe there's criticism there from the party, like how can we do better to communicate what we're trying to say? But I don't. And again, this might just be my ignorance, which is why I'm asking, like, what was a platform? Like, was Harris out there doing land acknowledgments? Was Harris out there, like, what part
Scott
of
mentioned price controls.
Well, land
price controls is a good one.
yes.
She was doing that on the campaign trail?
Described herself, I'm a female, she, her, she did these things along the campaign trail.
She identified herself as a woman?
Right, identified herself before speaking.
But that's atmospherics, isn't it? Is that the important stuff?
Well, I think to an outside political person, which would be, I don't know, 90, 80%, they're saying, wait, what? What was that? I missed that. And that's what I mean by this exclusive club for the left, is you have to somehow know that this is now how we do this. And if you don't know, you are ignorant. We will educate you. But, and so when I doorbell voters all the time, most of them are completely ignorant to some of this language, approved language, and groups, cliques, and labels is one thing. I do think labels is kind of a negative connotation of what is happening by putting people in groups, approved, but by and large, I don't know that the labels is the issue, or that the approved languages. I will say that the Democrats have not really separated themselves from it, and you use the term the woke, mob or whatever it is, the progressives from the Democrats. They're not separating, yes, we've got this faction of AOCs and the Progressive Caucus, which Adam Smith is a part of.
He's in both.
Right.
You're playing both
Washington
sides.
at its finest kind of thing. But no, I don't think that group being together is, helping Democrats advance at the national level.
Okay, and I'm going to pause this because, boy, could we talk all hour about this. We've been talking, as you said, Andrew, national politics. I want to, after we take a little break, bring this to Washington State, where this is an issue, how liberal, how democratic really is our new governor, and then why does it matter, or does it? We're going to come to Olympia and talk Washington State in just a moment on Week in Review. You're listening to, that's Maya Espinoza of the Center for Latino Leadership, and we have two beautiful to lives, Andrew Walsh and KUOW politics reporter Scott Greenstone, and I'm Bill Radke. And Scott, we're going to take a short break, but is this the kind of show you were describing?
I don't know.
Listeners?
I think we got to turn up the thoughtfulness.
Really?
I think we got to. No,
I'm sorry. I'm losing you money by being here.
Money meaning
kick Andrew out first.
If you're just joining us, it is the final full day of our spring membership drive, our spring fundraiser. So if you've been waiting to give, this is the time. Go to KUOW.org, and don't just I love when you say, I am a Week in Review fan. I'd also say, it does cost money, like everything good. So when you go to KUOW.org, there's a button says Give Now or something like that, and you give a little scratch so that this program can continue.
And you're not just paying for the studios that we're sitting in, and the lights that we're bathing under that are lighting us so well on the live stream feeds. You're also paying for the live stream feeds online, and you're essential. I mean, you're paying for the gas that I put in my car to drive down to Olympia to interview Republicans, Democrats, and independent voters across the state. Like, you're paying for all that, and you're saying, I want to keep this around because this is an important part of our culture here in the BNW and our kind of honestly our knowledge of ourself as a region. I think that listening to public radio, it gives me the sense of the personality of the BNW better than any news source, in my opinion. And when you give at KUOW.org, you're saying, I support that. I want KUOW to stay around in the future. And also, I said it at the beginning of the hour, but I'm going to say it again. If you've been procrastinating, now is the time to give, because for the next half hour, we get to match your donation because of two of our listeners in Ballard, Spencer and Chris. They're matching your donation. Spencer and Chris, thank you.
What an opportunity. So if you can give, $25 a month, actually you can give $50 right now because of this challenge match. So, and 2 times 0 is nothing. So get in on it right now, KUOW.org, or call us, 206-543-9595. If you have $20 a month for KUOW, we'll thank you with a digital news subscription to the New York Times, which I'm guessing you appreciate.
I very much appreciate. Sometimes I just go on the New York Times front page to just be like, is there anything going on that I need to worry about? Like
Absolutely.
This, like anything local, anything in DC, it's a nice grounding thing of just, I also get the newsletters, those things, but yeah, you're giving to that news source, that national news source. And you're also you're giving to this local news source that keeps you grounded here in this region as well.
For example, it keeps you grounded in Linwood, where Arthur lives. And Arthur joined and gave money to KUOW and said, I am upgrading my donation from $15 a month to $20 a month. Thank you. So you can do that. You can assess, right? Like, you know what? The $15 a month went down. That was fine.
Yeah.
I love Week in Review. I love KUOW. I can do 20 a month, as Arthur did. Patty in Bellingham says she's upgrading from look at this, from 25 to 35 a month.
Awesome.
So if you can do that, you're doing for somebody who maybe can't right now as well. Your community member who would like to be informed as well.
Yeah, and our costs are going up, right? Have gone up with inflation. When you raise your monthly amount, you're helping us meet those costs. We have Patricia, who says she donated because I listen to it every day. I listen to KUOW every day, and I believe you are sharing facts we need to hear.
Indeed. Yes, I think you do, Patricia. Okay, let's take our little break and again continue the show because it's so good. And just to remind you, final thoughts here. We have $10,000 pool of money. Picture it sitting on a table. We can take it or not, take it or waste it. So if you go to KUOW.org, you are giving what you can to KUOW, and it's being automatically doubled because of Chris and Spencer. So you're going to go to KUOW.org, and you're going to love listening even more because you're helping make it happen.
It's going to feel even better.
Feel better. Thank you for doing it.
Support for KUOW comes from Third Place Books. Journalist Malcolm Harris discusses his new book, What's Left? 3 Paths Through the Planetary Crisis. Sunday, April 27th at 7 p.m. More information at thirdplacebooks.com. And from Jazz Night School, an adult music education community dedicated to honoring Black American music with combos, big bands, vocals, and classes, helping beginners build skills and challenging advanced musicians to grow. Concerts at the Royal Room, March 20th through 22nd. More at jazznightschool.org.
This is KUOW's Week in Review. I'm your host, Bill Radke. And this week, listening to this show means you're getting Too Beautiful to Live podcast co-host Andrew Walsh and the co-host of KUOW's Sound Politics podcast, Scott Greenstone, and the founder and executive director of the Center for Latino Leadership, Maya Espinosa, is with us. And Scott, we were just discussing how lefty Washington Democrats should be, how lefty they are, which leads us right to our new governor. Bob Ferguson is so far doesn't seem as progressive as a lot of people expected. Now, is that because he's no Jay Inslee or because he doesn't have Jay Inslee money and he has to be conservative because there's a giant budget deficit?
Yeah. I mean, if you talk to him, he would say that the writing has been on the wall for years and Democrats have not done the job of balancing the budget, and he doesn't, want to jump in and balance it by passing a lot of new taxes. I think that has hit progressives really strange, because when they looked at his lawsuits against Trump, his lawsuits against these big corporations, I think they were like, okay, this guy is clearly a progressive. And he sort of ran that way, but I think they kind of looked aside when he filled the airwaves with ads about, spending $100 million to hire a bunch more cops. And when he talked about, fiscal responsibility, he talked about that stuff. It just wasn't at the front of his campaign.
I think, here's my theory on this whole thing, and just so you know, it's well thought out. I came up with it 30 seconds ago. I think he doesn't want to drive around Eastern Washington and see those bumper stickers that have Calvin peeing on his name. The way you go, you know the Calvin peeing on Inslee bumper stickers? I think he's just scared of that.
More.
Yeah, that's the most mild example to come up with, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Ferguson is anything but a hardcore progressive. I think this is a very calculated move that he's taking, and I think it's, positioning himself for some higher future office.
You think he's going to sign tax increases that he's acting like he doesn't want?
But yes, in part. I think it's more a facet of, he's a smart guy as well. I can't totally say the same for what I thought about Inslee, but he does know that there are budget consequences as well. But he's really, with the police thing, he's really playing into, look, I'm the moderate here. I'm the, casual alternative to the far left. I'm the one, that's able to speak truth to power, which here in Washington is the far left. I think it's really just a political move for him, and I think it's a good one,
But how do you think he's not? He's so far as saying, I'm not into taxes. We got to cut the budget. And you mentioned police. So how do you think he's a progressive in moderates' clothing?
I think his political history has proven his progressive bona fides. He has, been nothing but a progressive. He's endorsed the most progressive candidates, and he went after every single Democrat to make sure that he proved himself to be a bona fide Democrat and progressive. I don't, again, think that it's completely disconnected from the reality of the budget, which is going on right now, and I think he is smart to know that, I'm not going to put our state in a bad position in the next few biennium here by making or signing, new taxes when we could certainly rearrange things. The state does not have a revenue problem. It has had a spending problem for a very long time.
KUOW's politics reporter, Scott Greenstone, the legislature is majority Democrat, and the governor's not talking about it, but the legislature is saying, we want to raise taxes. And in fact, our Olympia correspondent, Jeannie Lindsay, told us this week that Senate Democrats just told us how they've got fundraising ideas.
Like raising taxes on the state's wealthiest residents and companies.
And at the same time, we are going to use some of that revenue from those very wealthy people and businesses to reduce the sales tax that all 8 million people in the state pay.
He's talking about slashing the state's sales tax rate by 0.5 percentage point.
So cut the sales tax, tax the wealthy, let local governments raise property taxes. And Senate Democrats are proposing, I just saw, a 5% pay cut for state employees. What do you expect to actually happen? Is this all just negotiating stuff we should ignore, or what's interesting to you?
Well, the one thing you didn't mention, I think, if I remember correctly, spinning through this proposal quickly, is that they also want to end some tax exemptions to the tune of about $1 billion for larger corporations. Some of those are defunct. Some of them may be still going. I mean, certainly some of them are. That'll be the one that I think I'm most interested to look at, because I think if you're talking about ending tax cuts or tax exemptions for Boeing, for instance, that could have some support from the public. Boeing got the biggest corporate tax exemption in state history about a decade ago, promising they would bring more jobs to the state. If you look at how many jobs they had back then, it's more than they have now.
Yeah.
That's not, you could point to a lot of things for the reason behind that, but I think that's one thing that we definitely will see coming out of this.
Can I ask you guys a question? And I know I'm coming off as super naive here, but how do you think this negotiation is going as far as tone is concerned, because I do think that maybe I'm pretty far away from Olympia. I follow Seattle politics very closely, so I might just be seeing this from too far away. But I listened to your podcast, Scott. Well, shout out, Sound Politics, and you had like Representative Couture on the other day, who I think
Mason County or something, Republican.
Mason County, Republican, who's I think he's the lead Republican for negotiating budgetary stuff. And I've heard some Democrats that you've had on as well. I know you're trying to get Ferguson on. Bob, if you're listening,
please
come on my podcast. He loves this show.
Return the phone calls. But it seems to me that the conversations are in good faith, and like we can have reasonable disagreements about these budgetary things, which just reminds me of a golden age of when I first got into public radio a long time ago. Like it was kind of like we could disagree and have reasonable debates. And maybe I'm just so desensitized from what I see as the toxicity of politics in America right now that it sort of feels like this is the process sort of working. Am I just being a big baby?
Well, Representative Couture told you, Scott, I listened to Sound Politics, and he said that
thank you all.
You're well, thank you. He said that Ferguson took the time to come down and speak to our whole Republican caucus. I never once saw Governor Inslee do that since I've been here. It feels nice that there's a governor even in the opposite party, and still with many disagreements, they just live on the same planet as the rest of us.
I mean, there's one thing that I kind of want to set the record straight on a little bit is this budget deficit, story. The budget deficit, as it's described, is really just a decrease in the increase of expected revenue. So revenue is still increasing.
That's right.
But there was a big discrepancy that came out between the Senate Democrat and Senate Republican budgets. The Senate Republican budget had nonpartisan budget staff produce anticipated revenue, and what they found is that there's only really a $6.7 billion deficit, not 12 or 15 billion. This stretch.
Well, have a problem solved.
And so Republicans are certainly saying, look, hey, we're willing to grow government by just 5%, but let's talk about real numbers here. The reason for that gap in budget is the appropriations of funds. So Democrats have been able to pass all sorts of bills, wish list bills that have not yet been funded. They are subject to appropriation. So when we are in a position where we are in the middle of a deficit, wouldn't those kind of areas be the first that you cut? I mean, you really can't cut what's not yet there. So, I just, from my perspective, we're talking, we are negotiating, I think, in seemingly good faith, but between 12 and 15 billion or between 15 and 7 billion, I think is a very different conversation.
I didn't expect a Republican to come on and say, hey, maybe we don't need to cut as much as some of the. But I do. I think what you're pointing out does point out to me the danger. And this is why I considered today for the first time that Ferguson might actually believe we should not institute any new taxes. It's because it is very hard to budget when on ongoing government spending based on taxes that haven't brought in any money yet. You don't really know how much a tax is going to bring in if it's not an income tax. And so if you're budgeting based on money you don't have yet, that's how they've been doing it, according to Ferguson and according to the Republicans. And that's why we're, in this hole that we're in right now. It's a tough, I'm not good at math either, but it does seem like a tough situation.
Well, we've got, about half the legislative session to go or something like that? It goes somewhere into April, so I'm going to be listening to KUOW's Sound Politics. Scott Greenstone will tell us and Jeannie Lindsay will tell us what's passing, what's expiring. So we're going to take a little break, but not before I remind you that it's the final, the last, the ultimate full day of our spring fundraising drive. So this is the time to give, Scott, for one thing, because you love KUOW and Sound Politics and Week in Review. So you're going to go to KUOW.org and shore up this journalistic institution. But also, Scott, because you can double your spending power right now.
That's right. Thanks to, I've said their names so many times, they're probably like, shut up. Oh. But Spencer and Chris in Ballard, they're matching your donations up to $10,000 just for this hour. In fact, that's just for the next 20 minutes.
Yep.
So you basically have 20 minutes. If you spend $20 giving to KUOW, in the next 20 minutes, it turns into $40, okay? Again, not good at math. We've been talking a lot about budgets. My brain is going, but that seems simple to me.
Yeah, I followed it.
Okay, good. You can double your money if you give in the next 19, 18 minutes.
Yep.
I can't read a clock either.
I know it's KUOW.org, and I know that our phone number is 206-543-9595. I know that a listener named Sandri said, I love listening to the news on the radio during my commute. Janet in Tacoma says she's doing this as a one-time gift along with her current monthly donations. So I don't know what made Janet say, hey, I'm good. I'm a monthly donor. And man, I need to chip in some money now more than ever. Maybe it's the double your money just this hour. Maybe something's going on where Janet says, gee, local, thoughtful, independent, reliable journalism, that's really going to come in handy. I feel that way. But you pick your reason and pick your amount, but go to KUOW.org.
Yeah, that's right. I know. I think a lot about right now as I'm scrolling through social media feeds. How
your thumb was going while you said that.
Yeah. This is how only people who are watching online can tell that this is how I scroll. My eyes are wide.
I do that too.
And my thumb is shaking through TikTok. And what I think about is how disconnected social media makes us from our local sort of space. We're seeing news from DC, the other Washington that we love so much, and across the world. We're seeing videos that we maybe don't even know where they come from, right? There's not as much local, reliable content. And when you're supporting KUOW, you don't just support political hack stuff like this, You're also supporting programs like Seattle Eats, which is a podcast that goes into the amazing Seattle dining scene.
Ton Vin is so good.
That's right. Ton Vin and Claire McGrain is our producer and co-host on that. And I think it's a way when you give, you're raising your flag and you're saying, I love this place I live in, and I love this programming about this place, this these podcasts and this radio broadcast and this live stream on YouTube. I love everything about the PNW, and I love KUOW. And so if you go to KUOW.org, we're doubling it for the next 15 minutes. Time isn't real. It's 16 minutes. I keep winding down the clock a little too quickly, but for the next 15 minutes, you get to double your donation. So if you give $20, it becomes $40. If you give $40, it becomes $80.
Yeah.
KUOW.org.
And final thing, we're going to give you another reason to donate right now because we're going to go back to the show and talk about the local news. Whew. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Spencer and Chris, for doubling everybody's money right now. And thank you for providing that money to keep KUOW chugging along. We're looking for $3,500 in the next 16 minutes. Short break, and then we're right back with more news.
Support for KUOW comes from Eco Design and Maintenance, family-owned and specializing in start-to-finish exterior design using materials and methods that help to reduce environmental impact. From landscapes to hardscaping, outdoor spaces designed to be functional and long-lasting. More at eco-seattle.com. And from Seattle Art Museum, presenting I, Rebo, the art and activism of Ai Weiwei, opening March 12th, featuring over 130 works from the conceptual artist, including photography, sculpture, installation, and more. Tickets at seattleartmuseum.org.
It's KUOW's Week in Review. I'm Bill Radke. I think the YouTube audience could guess that we were talking about rock and roll just with our... Yeah, you're doing... Maya's playing the air drums. Yeah. And I saw a guitar riff for sure. That's Maya Espinoza, Executive Director and founder of both Rush and the Center for Latino Leadership. We've got KUOW Sound Politics host Scott Greenstone, and we've got, from the podcast Too Beautiful to Live, the beautiful Andrew Walsh. So continuing on with the news as we do, and thanks for donating while we're talking. This hour we've been talking the whole hour about being a blue city, blue region, blue-leaning state. Yet if you look around, you'll see a lot of Elon Musk. There's a lot of Teslas here, and there's the big SpaceX and Starlink offices in Redmond. I just read in the Seattle Times that some Musk opponents have been demonstrating outside those Redmond offices for 5 weeks. I didn't know that. There have been protests at Tesla dealerships nationwide, but here too. And the U.S. Attorney General, Pam Bondi, says the acts of vandalism against Teslas count as domestic terrorism. Maya, you would agree?
Domestic terrorism is, it might fit the definition. I don't know. It's clearly a demonstration. Protesting is fine, in my opinion. Property destruction is probably not. That's where I draw the line. I think it's the most noteworthy of this whole conversation, of course, and forgive me for stating the obvious, is that an environmental icon like the Tesla has now become a symbol, an icon for Donald Trump and this, very polarizing figure, particularly here in Washington state. So it's been pretty incredible to watch this whole 180 from I'm so proud, to drive an electric vehicle. And of course, Elon Musk designed these cars and this whole, his whole brand to be boast approachable from a cost perspective, attractive looking vehicles so that, your average consumer would say, I don't mind that it's electric. It's a cool car. But now it doesn't matter because of what it represents for the left. So I think it's I don't know. Again, it would be really, truly up to the definition of domestic terrorism. But property destruction at this level is unbelievable and I think completely unacceptable.
What do you mean by at this level?
Well, I think it's, not just the occasional Tesla. It's every single day there's a news story. This morning it was some mom run off the road in Linwood because she was driving a Tesla. Some Subaru, ran her off the road. And, of course, the mom claims it was because she was in a Tesla. My, good friend yesterday drove into his parking garage in Bellevue, and one of the Teslas had paint dumped all over it. The prevalence of this is pretty remarkable. It's not just the occasional here. And it wasn't just 1 week splash in the pan, 5 weeks of protesting. And then we have that, I forget the congresswoman's name, but asking, inciting violence for her birthday, saying, I want to see the takedown of Elon Musk for my birthday. This is incredible stuff. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Like, in my ongoing efforts to see things from both sides and be fair, I set fire to a Volkswagen Golf today, a Volkswagen Golf on the way here, because I'm just kind of like, I just feel like we need some balance.
Didn't Hitler found beat up? I don't know.
I actually do drive a Golf, and that was a big conversation when we bought it. I'm actually not even joking. Like, isn't this the people's car? But putting that aside for a moment, like, obviously I would never endorse, targeting people with vandalism or anything like that. And certainly you hear from people who are like, well, this makes sense for me. Like, the only Teslas I've ever been in have been ride shares, and I don't look at the people who are driving me around to my local Eagles club as being like the ultra wealthy. Like,
Right.
Having said that, I guess the one thing is when people are feeling sort of desperate, as a lot of people are right now, and scared, and they feel maybe like powerless. And I'll be honest, and maybe, this probably sounds snowflakey, but I'm somebody who's freaking out and feels very powerless right now. The things that me and my partner are doing are we're trying not to put our money in the hands of people that we feel like are part of a government or even tangentially. So, some of them are symbolic. Like, I deleted Instagram, which I used a lot. I was not giving any money to Instagram. This doesn't hurt Zuckerberg, really. But I'm kind of like, I just don't want to be a part of that anymore. And it made me feel like, okay, well, this is something in my control that also doesn't have a huge impact on my life. I'll pull away. The Amazon thing has been much harder. We canceled our Prime. We no longer buy that. And that was tough because we'd gotten used to the convenience of that.
Another very progressive company.
And again, this is just how I feel, and so I don't want to kind of debate it, but having him on stage during the inauguration as some sort of a fish that Donald Trump caught didn't make me personally feel good because of where I live my life. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to participate. So when I see Tesla stock falling, which was a headline about that today, and people saying, hey, listen, when I go to buy a new car, I'm looking at Rivians, which I think look a lot cooler anyway. But anyway, I understand people wanting to say I at least don't want to support that company anymore. I'm not talking about keying a car. I'm not talking about splashing paint, but I'm talking about the economics of maybe at least trying to vote with your dollars.
Totally support that. And I think we can look to the right for the Bud Light example. no one was torching or protesting in front of, Bud Light factories and then lighting them on fire or going into.
This is Bud Light. Was it a transgender spokesperson or something? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, it was something,
down.
right, that the right kind of ran with and said that, with their dollar, they are going to stop. But they didn't even say it. They did it, and we saw.
You're forgetting that Kid. What about those poor cans of beer that Kid Rock supposedly shot with a machine gun?
Oh, my gosh. I was getting a lot of free Bud Light for a while because of this. So I was not complaining as a consumer, but you're totally right. I could not agree more.
Yeah.
Vote with your dollar. Show that you don't support this company if that's how you want to do. Vandalism is not the answer.
Okay. Same for the U.S. Capitol?
What?
No vandalism?
Don't vandalize the Capitol.
Okay, very good. Anything to add, Scott?
Oh, I reached out. I did a story on how liberal Tesla drivers are feeling a little while ago.
Yeah, listen to that. See,
yeah.
we all listen to your show.
I'm blown
This is
away.
why you support
Donate
public
now.
radio,
Yeah,
by the way. It's
exactly.
not just what you hear on the air.
So I can giggle that you're listening to my voice. But I actually checked back in with them in a sort of a preparation for this segment just to see, like, hey, because I did this a few weeks ago, and I it hadn't the firebombing in Soto hadn't happened and things like that. And I talked to Jordan Schwartz, who removed his logo, and he said that I won't be cowed by Nazis, and I won't be he texted me this. I won't be cowed by liberal purity test witch hunters. I took it off because it's a statement about what I believe, not because I'm worried some hashtag whatever who thinks they're fighting the man is going to key my car. I
I'd
thought
be
that was
worried.
interesting.
I'd be worried if I drove a Tesla right now.
So speaking of people who are like kind of changing the logos on their car, which I don't know how serious it is and how much, like this fella just took it off and didn't replace it with anything. I remember reading about that in your story. But some people are literally replacing their Tesla logos with like other
Rivian
cars.
one.
Yeah. And then there is a truck, a Tesla truck or whatever you call them, the Cybertruck thing, which has a very obvious shape, right? Like everybody. And have you guys seen this online? There is a Cybertruck that is driving around, I think, the Bellingham area. I thought I was being fooled by the internet, but I had a listener actually take a photo and send it to me because she saw it too. Somebody wrapped their Cybertruck all white and put the Rivian logo on the back of it, which was just I don't even know if that's a joke.
Are they being ironic?
I don't know if they're trolling me. I don't know if they're trolling Musk. But I give them absolute props. That's a good joke.
Okay.
That's one solution.
Another one of my sources put "Eat More Kale" sticker over her Tesla logo. She texted me.
Okay, it's all happening. So we're gonna preserve a little time at the end of the show, as I always do, to ask you if anything, for God's sake, made you smile. I hope that's something you can make a donation to KUOW for, is a smile. A couple things that we haven't had a chance to mention or even talk about this week. We have another Seattle Public School superintendent leaving. Brent Jones says his wife got a job, I think in California or something. So he's out. He didn't say it's because there's a big budget deficit and that his idea of closing a bunch of schools didn't go over well. And haven't heard another plan to cut the deficit that people like. The Soto neighborhood of Seattle, mostly industrial area, could get some new affordable housing, subsidized workspaces, hotels, restaurants. This is an area just a few blocks wide, and it got rezoned this week at a contentious city council
5-hour meeting.
5-hour meeting. And some electricians, other union members said, great, this is jobs, and we might even live there, right down there. But some Teamsters, for example, Teamsters members said, oh, more apartments near the truck traffic from the port, it's dangerous, it's congested, it's going to threaten port jobs. So there's that. I'll just pause there because I want to make sure we don't run out of time to say, Maya, who I've just met in person, thanks for coming on this week.
Long-time listener, Bill.
Thank you so much, Maya. Did anything make you smile this week?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Capitol Hill Block Party lineup was announced this week. I was smiling. I mean, I love Capitol Hill Block Party. I haven't been in a couple of years.
Wait a minute, a Republican who loves Capitol Hill Block Party.
Why is this shocking? I do yoga. I eat healthy.
No, that's not the shocking thing to me. The shocking thing to me is because you still have the bloom of youth about you. For me, I'm sorry to steal your thing, but I look at the poster every year and I recognize fewer and fewer of the bands. And this year I recognize literally 1.5.
So if it makes you feel better, I think what they did this year is pay a lot for some headliners and then get some, lesser known, and great. I'm happy to hear local artists to do some of the opening stuff. I think that's a great approach, but I recognized 5.
What do you think of adult? Is it a Capitol Hill block party that's going adults only for the first time?
Is
21
it?
and over?
I
for
hope
the first
so.
time?
They absolutely should.
Yeah?
Yes.
But that seems, talked about the congestion at the Port of Seattle. What's it going to be like trying to card people at the...
Well, I went to a concert one time down in Soto, and they ID'd me, and I was like, what do you mean? I thought this was an all-ages show, and they said, no, it's 13 and up. I'm like, 13? It's Wednesday night. Where are your parents?
Okay, we're running out of time. Andrew, what smiled you?
What smiled me is the breaking news this morning that the Mariners are going to offer a standalone package so you can watch Mariners games. You don't have to get cable anymore. You don't have to get Fubo anymore. You can just pay $20 a month and watch Mariners games on your phone. Supposedly no blackouts. So I pay for the MLB app, but you can't watch your local team on it because of blackouts. If you pay for it on Root Sports, they'll black out a few games a year so they can put them on Apple. It's gotten they're asking for too much money from too many different places. If we can just pay $20 a month for 6 months a year and watch our Mariners games, that'll make me smile until I watch them play the games, which will make me not smile.
I'm going to jump in because my smile was also about the Mariners. I do like it when a sports team has a sense of place to it, and I don't think every Major League stadiums has banh mi and sushi and katsu and teriyaki and all that. Do you know what a sumo dog is?
Mm-mm.
It's got pickled peppers, wasabi relish, spicy mayo, teriyaki sauce, minced onion, nori seaweed, and furikake, dried, the seasoning, the dried fish and all that.
Yeah.
Which brings me to a new offering this season at T-Mobile Park. Andrew, does one of the players of the Mariners go by the nickname the Big Dumper?
Oh, yeah, Cal Raleigh?
Okay.
Yeah.
And that
He's thick.
He's thick. All right, so this...
With 2 C's?
With 2 C's. But Dumper... I mean, that makes Dumper an excretion reference.
No,
okay?
no. It's more about the size of his posterior. He's up there.
Yeah, but Dumper?
Yeah.
What is Dumper supposed to mean about a posterior? I bring this up
It's large. I use all the adjectives I'm willing to use on public radio, my friend.
I think you're avoiding the reality. But anyway, there's a brand new pork soup dumpling at the walk-off market at T-Mobile, and it's called Little Dumper. Which
I love that.
reminds me of my dad who used to eat sausage gravy on toast, and I can't say it on the radio, but it was something on a shingle.
Yep.
But I thought, first I was disturbed, and then I thought, imagine how delicious that dumpling must be to overcome that name. They have so much confidence in that dish that they think people will pay to eat Little Dumper.
If they're soup dumplings, they will eat it.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
they
that's
will love
absolutely true. That's a place where I feel more comfortable.
Scott, you and I only have time to. We're running out of time, so we got to tell people that they got like a minute left to donate.
Yeah,
Did you do
exactly.
that?
What made me smile this week? Looking at all the donations coming into KUOW, we have gotten so many people stepping up this week, and if you want to join those good vibes, you literally only have, a minute left to double your donation. So if you give 25, it turns into 50.
Guess what? Actually, thank you, Bernard Ouellet. I say the name Bernard Ouellet because he makes us sound good every week.
Oh, he's our producer, yeah.
He's our producer, and he just told me that KUOW met this
Amazing.
We did it!
match.
Good job, you all.
So we didn't leave any money on the
it.
table. But we've got 2 more minutes to say this is the second to last. It's the final full day. I'm going to be on the air a little bit tomorrow morning too, and then we're going to wrap the thing up. But the
Good for
spring
you.
fundraising drive continues. That means we just paid some bills. We're paying some more bills until Saturday morning. So what should people do, Scott?
People should go to KUOW.org, or if they say you've got hands-free in your car right now and you're driving somewhere, you could dial 206-543-9595 as long as you're being safe. Or maybe you get there when you get there. But KUOW.org is the place to give.
That's a great idea. I think you can be safe and just, the phone number. How many times have you heard 206-543-9595 in your life if you've been listening as long as Maya has? And I think you could safely just say, hey, I'd like to make a donation. I'm going to quote Kelly in Port Orchard, who says, KUOW is there for me, helping me stay connected to my community wherever I may be with reliable, honest information. It remains one of the only places to find the truth and multiple perspectives. Kelly doesn't say week in review, but that's how I'm hearing it. I think that's what Kelly meant. Karma in Seattle says, I'm a monthly contributor, but want to help with the match this hour. And you did, Karma.
Thank you,
So listen, just, support KUOW if you love spending your Saturday mornings, if you love Week in Review. We got BBC NewsHour coming up. We're going to have Week in Review next week because we're going to put your donation to work. Or we're going to have people like Andrew Walsh from Too Beautiful to Live.
I'm donating right now.
Donating right now. He's writing something.
God.
He's doing something. Across the table. We're going to have people like the executive director and founder of the Center for Latino Leadership, Maya Espinoza. Maya, thank you for being on the show.
Really happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Bill.
We'll talk PLU sometime. We didn't even get a chance.
I know. Next time.
KUOW politics reporter, co-host of the Sound Politics podcast, Scott Greenstone. Thank you for being the show, talking
Thank
up
you.
the show. Yeah.
Thanks for talking up my podcast, Sound Politics.
And for your great work. And producer Kevin Kniestet, Bernard Ouellet on the board, social media help from Juan Pablo Chiquiza and Hans Twite. Go to KUOW.org or call 206-543-9595 and make that contribution. And thank you for doing it.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. Flights have resumed at London Heathrow Airport after electricity was restored to one of the world's busiest airports. Priority has been given to the